Let's not sugarcoat it. Some men live their entire lives trapped in a prison of their own making, and they don't even realize it. What? Because stupidity isn't just about IQ, it's about behavior, patterns, repeated mistakes, and worst of all, denial. Main narrative begins. Imagine a man walking in circles, blindfolded, wondering why he never arrives anywhere new. That's what true stupidity looks like. It's not just ignorance, it's stubborn ignorance. It's the refusal to grow, the unwillingness to take responsibility, and the inability to see how you're sabotaging your own life. The real danger. A stupid man doesn't know he's stupid. He thinks he's fine. He thinks he's smart. He thinks the world is just out to get him. And so year after year, he keeps making the same bad choices. He blames his boss, his wife, society, the system, anyone but himself. He never pauses to ask, could I be the problem? Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In other words, if you don't face your inner demons, they will run your life from the shadows and you'll blame bad luck. This is the essence of stupidity, not just being uninformed, but being ruled by unconscious behaviors and never questioning them. It's like being on autopilot. Your hands aren't on the wheel, but you're convinced you're in control. Now here's the hard truth. Stupidity is a choice. And unless you become painfully aware of the signs, unless you actively fight to change these patterns, you might already be living like a fool without knowing it. So how do you spot this kind of man, either in yourself or in someone else? Let's break it down. 1. He thinks he knows everything. Let's start with the most obvious sign. Nothing screams fool louder than a man who believes he's the smartest person in the room, especially when he's not. A truly stupid man is allergic to learning. He already knows it all. Ask him about politics. He's an expert. Economics knows better than any PhD. Psychology. Please, he watched a podcast once. But here's what the Bible says in Proverbs 18:2. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. And Carl Jung, thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. See the pattern? A stupid man doesn't want to understand, he just wants to speak. He wants to sound smart, not be smart. He argues endlessly, even when he's wrong. He dismisses advice from people far wiser than him. He mocks new ideas, not because they're wrong, but because they challenge what he already believes. He's stuck. Stuck in outdated thinking, stuck in false confidence, stuck in a mental echo chamber where his own voice is the only one that matters. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Psychologists call this the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's when people with low ability grossly overestimate their knowledge, while truly intelligent people are humble enough to admit how much they still don't know. A foolish man is blind to this. He thinks watching a few YouTube clips makes him an expert. He mistakes confidence for competence. And worst of all, he treats personal opinion like objective truth. Let's be honest, how many men do you know like this? They talk big. They act like they're always right, but their lives stagnant, unchanging, often a mess behind the scenes. How this mentality destroys his life. 1. He stops growing, believing he already knows everything. He sees no need to learn, so he stays exactly where he is, mentally, emotionally, professionally. 2. He pushes people away. No one wants to be around someone who's arrogant and clueless. Friends get tired, wives shut down, coworkers avoid him. 3. He repeats the same mistakes. Without reflection, he can't see his blind spots. So he keeps walking off the same cliff expecting a different result. He stagnates in his career in a world that rewards adaptability and learning. The man who refuses to evolve is quickly left behind. Now contrast this with a truly intelligent man. A wise man listens. He asks questions, reads, reflects, challenges his own views. He surrounds himself with people who are smarter because he knows that's how you grow. Socrates once said, a wise man knows that he knows nothing. That kind of humility is the gateway to real wisdom. It's not weakness, it's strength. 2, he never takes responsibility. Now let's talk about another deadly trait, blame shifting. A stupid man is never at fault. Ask him why his life is in shambles and he'll give you a list. His ex, the government, his genetics, his boss, the economy, his childhood, his horoscope. He has an excuse for everything. When he makes a bad choice, I was tricked. When he fails, they were out to get me. When he loses someone he loves, she was crazy. But never once does he say, maybe it was me. Why? Because that would require facing the truth that he might be the architect of his own suffering. And for some men, that's too painful to admit. But here's what you must understand. Accountability is maturity. When a man can't own his mistakes, he can't grow. Period. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. That's exactly what a stupid one is. He builds a fortress of lies to protect himself from the pain of self-awareness. He convinces himself, I'm not out of shape, it's bad genes. I'm not broke, the system's unfair. I'm not unhappy, this is just life. But in reality, he's running from the one truth he most needs to face his own reflection. Closing this section, building momentum for the rest of the script. This is the first layer of foolishness, prideful ignorance, and the fear of accountability. And sadly, it's far more common than we'd like to admit. But these are only the first two signs. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most. Because recognizing stupidity in others is easy, but seeing it in yourself, that takes real courage. So stay with me. In the next part of this video, we'll uncover the remaining signs of a stupid man. Some of them may surprise you, some may hit a little too close to home. But if you truly want to evolve, if you want to rise above mediocrity and live with clarity, strength, and wisdom, then what you hear next might just change your life. Let's keep going. We ended the last section with a brutal truth. A man who refuses to take responsibility is no longer in control of his own destiny. Now let's go deeper into that idea and what happens when he chooses comfort, blame, and pride over growth. 2. He refuses to take responsibility. When a man clings to excuses, he's not just avoiding blame, he's building a cage around himself. He protects his fragile ego at the cost of his future. So what actually happens when a man won't take ownership of his choices? He gets stuck. Not for a week, not for a year, but sometimes for a decade, or for the rest of his life. His problems repeat like a broken record, same arguments, same failures, same regrets. Why? Because without accountability, there's no real progress. And without progress, life becomes a loop. And people notice. Over time, those around him lose respect. His words stop carrying weight. His complaints sound tired. His excuses become transparent. Because deep down, everyone can see it. He's the problem. He just refuses to admit it. And here's the most dangerous part. When you keep blaming others, you hand over your power. The moment you say, it's not my fault, is the moment you give away your ability to change. You become a spectator in your own life, watching, waiting, hoping someone else will fix what only you can fix. The fool versus the wise man. There's a clear difference between the fool and the wise man, and it shows up in how they respond to adversity. A fool blames the world. A wise man adapts and finds a way through it. A fool makes excuses. A wise man accepts the situation and moves forward even if it's hard. A fool avoids discomfort. A wise man embraces it, knowing that's the only place where real growth happens. And this is exactly why foolish men remain bitter broke and stalk in the same place year after year, while wise men keep evolving, winning, and finding deeper purpose. So ask yourself honestly, are you taking full responsibility for your life, or are you secretly still playing the victim? Because your answer to that question determines everything. Be assured, he can't control his emotions. Another crystal clear sign of a foolish man, he's completely ruled by his emotions. He doesn't respond, he reacts. He lets anger, frustration, and fear lead the way. And as a result, his life becomes chaotic, unpredictable, and filled with regret. Let's break this down with a few examples. The hothead, he explodes at the smallest inconvenience: traffic, a slow reply to a message, someone simply disagreeing with him. He thinks his outbursts make him look powerful, but in truth, they reveal his deepest weakness, the inability to regulate himself, the overreactor. For him, every little issue feels like a catastrophe. He spirals quickly into self-pity, frustration, and emotional paralysis. Instead of solving problems, he drowns in them. The impulse-driven man, he acts without thinking, spends money recklessly, quits jobs in a fit of anger, says things in arguments that leave permanent damage. He is not in control of his emotions. His emotions are in control of him. Jung's warning. Carl Jung once warned, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is exactly what happens to the emotionally undisciplined man. He doesn't think. He doesn't reflect. He doesn't learn from mistakes. He simply reacts and then blames the aftermath on everything but himself. He confuses aggression for strength. He believes yelling the loudest makes him right. But the truth is brutal. A man who cannot control himself is weak. He becomes easy to manipulate. Anyone who knows how to push his buttons can steer his behavior. He becomes emotionally unstable because his mood depends entirely on things outside of his control. Even worse, he sabotages himself. His relationships fall apart. His opportunities slip away. And it's all because he let emotion, not logic, make the decisions. The wise man's way. A wise man, by contrast, is calm under pressure. He understands that emotions are temporary and that reacting to them blindly only leads to damage. He doesn't suppress his feelings, but he masters them. He knows when to speak and when to stay silent. He handles conflict not with chaos, but with clarity. As Proverbs 29:11 puts it, a fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man quietly holds it back. Here's how smart men deal with emotion. They pause before reacting. They reflect rather than lash out. They process emotions internally and respond thoughtfully. They don't allow anger to destroy their relationships. They use it as fuel to grow. They train their minds, becoming self-aware enough to notice when emotion is clouding judgment and shift toward rational thinking. Because the truth is simple. If a man can't control his emotions, he cannot control his life. Real strength isn't in shouting the loudest or hitting the hardest. It's in staying composed, thinking clearly, making decisions that build rather than destroy. Coming up next, but emotion isn't the only thing that shapes a man's destiny. In the next section, we'll look at something just as powerful: the people he surrounds himself with. Because whether he knows it or not, his inner circle is either building him up or dragging him down. Let's explore. Previously, we saw how a man's environment can either shape him or shatter him. Now let's continue with an even deeper truth: who you surround yourself with isn't just a reflection of your present, it's a blueprint of your future. If a man's closest friends are broke, lazy, and have no direction in life, guess what? That's exactly the path he's walking to. Whether he admits it or not, that group becomes his mirror. Their habits become his habits. Their mindset becomes his mindset. And their failures, he's headed toward the same ones. But a wise man does the opposite. He doesn't settle for comfort or familiarity. He actively seeks out people who challenge him, people who push him, make him feel uncomfortable and force him to grow. Not because he enjoys the discomfort, but because he understands one simple truth: growth never happens in comfort zones. There's a famous saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And smart men take that seriously. They don't let their egos trap them. They want to be surrounded by mentors, people who've already walked the path they're trying to walk. They want challengers, friends who call them out when they mess up, not just nod and smile. And most of all, they want winners, people who are driven, disciplined, and determined. Why? Because they understand something most foolish men never do. Your environment shapes you far more than you realize. A foolish man drifts along, letting his environment dictate his direction. He adapts to the energy around him without question. But a wise man takes control. He chooses his environment carefully, like a builder choosing the right materials for the foundation of a house. So ask yourself honestly, who are you surrounding yourself with? Because if you're constantly in a room full of fools, chances are you've already become one of them. Fifth, a foolish man chases pleasure instead of choosing discipline. This is one of the clearest signs of a man who's lost his way. He's not living with intention. He's just reacting to every urge, every impulse. He chooses what's easy, what feels good in the moment, instead of what's meaningful in the long run. He'll pick comfort over challenge, distraction over discipline, and instant gratification over lasting fulfillment. Whether it's mindless entertainment, junk food, endless scrolling, alcohol, drugs, or empty flings, he's hooked on the next dopamine hit, never stopping to ask what it's costing him. And here's the danger: when a man keeps chasing pleasure, he becomes a slave to it. Carl Jung once said that the human mind is a battlefield between our higher self, the disciplined self, and our lower self, the primitive, indulgent one. And every time a man gives in to mindless pleasure, he lets his lower self take the wheel. Fools live for pleasure, but the wise, they invest in the future. In other words, if a man doesn't discipline his desires, those desires will end up controlling him. And today's world makes it easier than ever to fall into this trap. Bored, open TikTok and scroll for hours. Sad, drown it in alcohol. Lonely, swipe right until something sticks. Unmotivated, fire up a video game and pretend to win instead of winning in real life. Every day, countless men choose these distractions over discipline. And what happens? Their dreams stay dreams. Their bodies weaken, their minds dull. And years later, they wake up and ask themselves, what happened to the man I wanted to become? The truth is, a foolish man asks, what feels good right now? But a wise man asks, what will make my future better? The lazy fool wastes his time binge-watching Netflix. The wise man uses that time to build his body, sharpen his skills, and master his mind. The foolish man spends money on parties, junk, and status symbols. The wise man saves, invests, and builds real wealth. The undisciplined man jumps from one casual fling to another, constantly feeling empty. The wise man builds meaningful relationships with people who elevate his life. This is why only disciplined men rise. The wise store up choice food and oil, but fools gulp their errors down. Proverbs 21:20. Look at the greatest men in history, warriors, philosophers, leaders. They weren't driven by pleasure, they were driven by purpose. They woke up early, trained their minds, mastered their desires, and stayed focused on their mission. Because here's the trap. Pleasure is addictive. A fool seeks it. A wise man masters it. And if you can't master yourself, the world will master you. 6, the foolish man never learns from his mistakes. This one is deadly, because a man who refuses to learn is doomed to repeat. Again and again, he walks into the same trap, whether it's in relationships, money, or self-sabotaging habits, and wonders why nothing ever changes. He dates the same toxic types, then wonders why love always ends in pain. He blows his money carelessly, then wonders why he's always broke. He procrastinates, avoids responsibility, gives in to addiction, and acts surprised when life keeps falling apart. This is what Carl Jung called unconscious repetition compulsion, the psychological pattern where we repeat harmful behaviors from our past simply because they're familiar. Even if they cause pain, they feel safe, and that's what makes it so dangerous. A foolish man never stops to ask, why does this keep happening to me? Instead, he plays the victim. He blames the world, blames others, blames bad luck. But he never blames the one person responsible himself. Here's the truth. Life is constantly teaching us lessons. The only question is, are you learning? As Albert Einstein once said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. A wise man does something different. He studies his mistakes. He faces his pain head on and asks the tough questions. What went wrong? What could I have done differently? What lesson is this trying to teach me? Because both fools and wise men fail. Both fall, both get hurt, but the difference a fool repeats. A wise man evolves, and life will keep punishing the fool again and again until he finally wakes up and chooses growth over ignorance. So now ask yourself, are you learning from your past or just repeating it? Let me leave you with one final bonus sign of a foolish man. He talks more than he listens. He loves the sound of his own voice. He dominates conversations, interrupts, rarely listens, and almost never asks questions. Why is this foolish? Because listening is how we grow. It's how we connect. It's how we gain wisdom, perspective, and emotional intelligence. A man who can't listen is a man who can't improve. So now that we've explored the 6 biggest signs of a foolish man, there's only one thing left to ask. Are you brave enough to recognize these traits in yourself and because no one is born wise? Wisdom is earned, one decision at a time. We've just uncovered the 6 biggest signs of a foolish man. Painful, maybe. Necessary, absolutely. Because the first step toward change is awareness. Now the question becomes clear. How do you break free from these patterns and begin building real intelligence? Let's make one thing crystal clear. True intelligence isn't about having a high IQ or memorizing random trivia. It's not about how many books you've read or how smart you sound in conversation. Real intelligence is far more personal and far more powerful. It's about self-awareness. It's about the ability to adapt. And most importantly, it's about having the discipline to make better choices even when they're hard. So if you're ready to rise above the noise, if you want to escape the trap of foolish behavior and evolve into a wiser, stronger version of yourself, stay with me. Because in this next section, we're going to break down the exact steps you need to take to shift your life to a higher level. But before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Which of these 6 signs have you seen in others or even in yourself? This isn't about shame. It's about growth. Let's talk. Now, if you're serious about escaping stupidity and developing true grounded intelligence, here's what you need to do. Step 1. Get brutally honest with yourself. No more lying, no more sugarcoating, no more excuses. Take a long, uncomfortable look at your life and ask, where am I repeating the same mistakes over and over? Am I blaming others for things I need to take responsibility for? Am I surrounding myself with people who challenge me to grow, or people who keep me stuck in the same place? Carl Jung once said, people will do anything no matter how absurd to avoid facing their own soul. And he was right, because facing yourself, really seeing your own flaws, bad habits, and destructive patterns hurts. But if you're not willing to be honest about your flaws, you will never grow. Step 2. Kill your ego and stay humble. A foolish man thinks he knows everything. He walks through life blindfolded by arrogance. But a wise man, he walks through life with open eyes, always learning, always listening. Start asking yourself, what do I believe that might be wrong? What can I learn from the people around me, even those I disagree with? Am I open to feedback, or do I get defensive the moment I am challenged? The truth is, the moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing. So stay humble, stay curious, stay open. Never assume you've figured it all out, because the day you think you have is the day you start falling behind. Step 3. Master emotional control. A foolish man is a slave to his emotions. He gets angry and lashes out. He feels jealousy and acts on it. He's driven by impulse, not insight. But a wise man, he feels everything but acts with intention. He doesn't let temporary emotions create permanent damage. Learn to pause before reacting. Practice patience. Listen more than you speak. And most importantly, stop letting every little frustration or inconvenience trigger you. Because here's the hard truth. A man who can't control himself will always be controlled by something else. Step 4. Surround yourself with people who are smarter, stronger, and further along. If you're the smartest person in your circle, you're in the wrong circle. Seek out mentors. Spend time with people who inspire you, challenge you, and make you level up. Cut off the negative influences, the ones who keep you stuck, feed your weaknesses, or hold you back. Jim Rohn once said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So ask yourself, are those 5 people lifting you up or pulling you down? Step 5. Learn from every single mistake. This is the most important rule. You will make mistakes. That's not a question. That's life. But the question is, will you actually learn from them? Will you reflect, adapt, and grow? Or will you keep repeating the same cycles, hoping something magically changes? A wise man sees every failure as a lesson. He digs into the pain. He finds the message. He comes back stronger. A foolish man ignores the message. He blames bad luck. And before long, he's in the same pit again. Here's what most people don't realize. Intelligence is a choice. Stupidity, it's not permanent unless you choose to stay there. You can rise, you can change, you can evolve, but only if you're willing to do the hard work. So remember, face yourself, stay humble, learn from your mistakes, choose your circle with intention, because the truth is most people will never do this. They'll stay stuck in their loops. They'll keep blaming others. They'll avoid responsibility, and they'll wonder why nothing in their life ever changes. But you're different. You're here because you want to grow. You're not looking for comfort, you're looking for truth. You want to become the kind of man who learns, adapts, and succeeds. So the final choice is yours. If this message spoke to you, hit subscribe. Stick with us for more insights that will push you to rise above the average, silence the noise, and unlock your highest potential. Stay sharp, stay disciplined, and never, never stop learning.